Recently I was in a position where I thought I'd actually be able to buy my Grail watch. And after putting some effort and time into that thought, I ended up not buying it. And one of the big reasons why I didn't buy my Grail watch was because of this Oris Big Crown pointer date. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. And yes, an Oris was a reason, or a big part of the reason, why I didn't end up buying my Grail watch last year. Last year, I suddenly realised I was in a position where I could actually afford to buy my Grail watch. It was going to be a little bit of a stretch and I was probably going to have to buy it second hand, but I thought, wow, I actually might be in that position. But of course, because it was a lot of money for me, I wanted to make sure it was the right decision to buy the watch. So I went out and tried on a bunch of these watches. I went and tried all the watches that I would sort of consider my Grail watches. And whilst doing that, whilst trying on these very nice watches, I saw that there was the pointer date sitting in the cabinet nearby the Omegas. I was trying on an Omega at the time and I thought, well, this is a nice Omega. It is one of my Grail watches, but I also like Oris. Let's go try on that pointer date. And as soon as I did, I realized that I liked that Oris as much as that Omega that I just tried on. I'm not saying that it is better than the Omega. I'm not saying the movement is better. I'm not saying that its finish is better than the Omega, but I liked it equally as much as that Omega. And I thought to myself, why would I spend that amount of money on a very nice Omega, which I liked, when I could buy an Oris watch, which I liked equally as much for significantly less money? And that sent me on that little bit of a trip of, well, what other watches are out there at much less money that I like equally as much as my Grail watches? And I ended up buying a few different watches instead of that one Grail, which left me with the idea that I still wanted to own this Oris pointer date. But it took me a little while to find the right one at the right price. And obviously I've now been able to find one, and it has finally arrived this morning. At the time of recording this episode, it has only just turned up on my doorstep. And today I want to share with you my first impressions of it, share with you some of the reasons why I think I like this one so much and why it actually stopped me buying my Grail watch. There is something rather special about Oris watches. There's something rather special about them, enough that it stopped me buying my Grail watch, or at least it was a big element into the reason why I didn't buy my Grail watch. But there's something else about them, because when I look at my collection of watches, I sort of see that I actually don't have many repeats of the same brand. In fact, I don't have any repeats of the same brand except for Oris. All my other watches, I have one from each brand. Oris, I have three. But this particular Oris, this pointer date, when it first arrived, well, I'm going to say that there were 5 things that stood out to me. And the first thing is this bracelet. I knew it would be a good quality bracelet. The bracelets on my other Oris watches are lovely, but I did not expect that dramatic taper. This tapers from 20 down to 16 millimeters, which really does change the on-wrist feel of this watch. A reasonably expected thing that stood out to me is that pointer date hand. I like a 4th hand on a watch. That's just one of the reasons why I like GMTs so much. Partly because I do like the GMT complication, but I just like that extra hand on the dial. And I think that is definitely one of the things that has drawn me to this particular watch, because obviously it is a pointer date. Also, the style of the hands themselves, those sort of cathedral styled hands, I really like them. It gives me a sort of a bit of a vintage vibe, but I just think it really suits this style of watch too. It really does draw me to watches when I see this style of hands, and definitely for me, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to buy this one. The 4th thing that stood out to me was something that I assumed was going to be the case because of my other Oris watches and because of other Oris watches that I've had hands-on with, and that is the quality. The quality of all the Oris watches that I've handled and the ones that I owned are amazing, and this one is definitely amazing. There is definitely something special about Oris watches. You can really feel something about them that really elevates the overall feeling of a watch because of the details, because of the feeling of it, because of the look of them, because of the design of them, but definitely also the quality. And the last thing that really stood out to me is the on-wrist experience. Now, I've had hands-on with these pointer dates a couple of times in the past, but each one was on a leather strap. And I like them on the leather strap. I think they look fantastic on a leather strap, but I really wanted to get the bracelet so that I could then switch back and forth if I wanted to. what I didn't expect for it to do was sit so nicely, partly because of this tapering bracelet, but just check out the case and how it sits down on my 17 centimeter or around about 6 3/4 inch wrist. I've often mentioned about some of the watches in my collection that just sit on wrist beautifully. Some of them just sit so well that it makes me a little bit excited, and this is equally as good as any of those. In fact, it's probably one of the absolute best on-wrist experiences of any watch I've ever experienced. It is wonderful. I can absolutely see why these ones are so popular. And it is a nice watch to wear, and it is going to be a nice watch to wear longer term. So of course, normally, as per always, I am going to be wearing this one for a few months and then do a full in-depth review. But you may also be aware that there is a new segment to these first impressions video. But it's not me. It is my wife.
Thanks, James. Now you're watching Amy. First of all, I'm going to talk about this Oris I have here today. What do I like about it? The hands, especially the hour hand, I love the detail on that. The date complication, absolutely fantastic. And that dial, folks, what can I say? The pastel blue grey, that just pops. No dislikes on this one at all. Thanks for watching. Maybe check out these videos next.